So the villagers got obviously quite annoyed with this person, which living in a cave. So they actually went over to the Glastonbury Abbey to speak to monk Father Bernard, who was over there, and he agreed to come and give the villagers a hand exorcising the witch out of the cave. So the legend carried on that he came into the caves and met the witch in the goat's herder, which we were just standing in. They had a bit of a to-do. She got slightly annoyed, flew off down Hell's Ladder and came into this chamber where we are. He was quite a brave man, armed with the Bible and chalice. He followed it down Hell's Ladder and came into here. He walked down to the River Axe, which you can see down there, got a chalice of water, blessed it, turning it to holy water, and started throwing it all over the caves because he didn't know where she was. Again, he had a flaming torch, not the light we have here today. And he was quite lucky, he actually hit the witch with the holy water, turning her to stone. So, you need a bit of an imagination or a drink. I don't know if anyone's doing it up yet. If you come over this way a little bit, like we're in here, you do need, again, a bit of an imagination. You can make out two eyes, a nose, and a mouth screaming back at you.
Yes,
Anyone see
yeah,
it?
you
Or
can,
am I
yeah,
getting
you
some
can.
crazy?
Yeah.
No, you can, okay, lovely. If you can see that, that is the Witch of Wookey Hole.
Oh,
If not, we know that it's just a rock formation. But you can imagine if you were coming in the caves for the first time with a flaming torch and you didn't know how big this chamber was, and you walk past this face with a torch that's moving and the flames flickering, it really animates the face quite nicely. And we have tried it, and it does come across as a real face with the silhouette of it. So the witch here didn't have a cat, she actually had a dog, which is Dougal, just on the floor over here. Yeah, that one you don't need much imagination. And also he had his bowl of food that was turned to stone. He got caught in the crossfire, bless him. And then also, again, that is the stalagmite. And then we do have the incredibly white big giant in front of you. And if you look at the very top, you can see the tiny stalactite is dripping every now and then. Just there. That tiny drip has formed this whole rock formation you are looking at. And that tiny drip, when it hits, it does leave a tiny deposit of calcite, and that is what is forming all of this in front of you. And then next to that, in the pond, we have St Michael's Mount, which got nicknamed after the one down in Cornwall. They look pretty similar. And then next to that, we do have our beehive, we call it, or Jabba the Hutt, depending on which way you want to look at it. That's pretty obvious as well. So these are the main stalagmites in here. The next chamber we are going to go into is chamber 2. And it's very role reversal in there. Light flows, they are just spectacular.
Looks like lace.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
We'll do now when we get to the other one. Look at that.
So welcome to Chamber 2. As you can see, like I say, it is very heavy decorated from the roof in here. If you will come forward a little bit, we'll get a good look. So we have different types of stalactites in here. We do have, we do have this beautiful calcite flow coming down the wall here that's kind of twinkling. I always think it looks like icing on a cake that's almost just sort of dribbled down the wall, but it is obviously incredibly solid. So that's calcite flow, and then over this side we have this big sail, it's called, and we do have another sail here with the flow underneath. And then we do also, just above us, have these little straw stalactites. They're called straws because they are hollow in the middle, they are very delicate. So as the water runs through the straw, the pressure in there, it doesn't drip straight away. So that at the very, very tip, it does stick. And then there is a white tip on them. So the white tip has taken about 100 years to grow. And the reason they're black is because when the show cave was open to the public, they didn't have electric lights in here. So what they used to do is bring oil drums of benzoline and oils and stuff to the wall, throw a flaming torch on it, and turn it into a fireball to illuminate the cave. So the black part on these is where it's just soot that's landed on the calcite formation. But if you look over here, you can see it's all black. So this would have been one of the areas that they used to burn to illuminate the caves. And then also straight across where my torch is, you can see it's very black over there as well. So that would have been another place. And then if you look up, you can see all the soot that's landed on the rock above it. But I love the fact, especially over here, you can see all the white calcite is regrowing. So that means the cave is regenerating itself. So I absolutely love the fact in 50,000 years' time, if people are still walking through here, that whole white is just going to, that whole wall is just going to be pure white again. Unless they actually read into it and do the history of the cave, they're not going to know they used to burn in here. I just love the fact it's regrowing. It's just, it amazes me. So this chamber is 22 metres to ceiling. So what we can do, we are going to walk down the steps again just here. They are slippery and quite wet, so just take your time. Guys, so as you can see, it's completely different, and you'll understand why I'm taking the heads down a little bit longer. So this chamber was carved out, the same as the rest of the cave, by the river axe. But this chamber used to turn into, I'm going to say used to, because the cave doesn't flood anymore, because we control the water levels. But this chamber, when it used to go into flood, used to turn into a giant whirlpool. So the water enters, if you follow the water line over the back, you can see a thin strip of black. That is a tip of an archway where the river axe flows in. And then it does flow to the right, keeps going under the steps, and it kind of exits over the back of the chamber, kind of roughly over there. So the reason this turned into a whirlpool is because the entrance into it, where the water is coming from, is bigger than the exit. So if the cave used to have heavy rains on the surface, the flow of water used to be more coming in than could leave at the same time. So the water levels used to rise in here pretty quick. Cave divers did come in when the cave used to go into flood to have a look, and they reported it took 20 minutes to fill this whole chamber up. So it goes pretty quick. But obviously the pressure of water coming in, it backs up quicker. That's what creates the whirlpool in here, and it's carved out this pretty impressive. We're moving the ground. It's not far off, but it is amazing. Also, this is one of the most important chambers here at Wookey Hole, because back in 1935, this is where the first cave dive ever took place. Not even 100 years ago. And it's by Graham Balcom and Penelope Powell, so girl power. I say diving, it was a big brass helmet, big lead boots, their friend pumping air to them to keep them alive. So they set up the little beach area just here. In front of you, they walked out through the tunnel into chamber 4 and then into chamber 5. When they got into chamber 5, they could see the cave still went on, but they'd reached the maximum of their air pipe. So they turned around, they walked back into here, went back to London to CB Gorman, which is the company that makes deep sea diving suits. They borrowed some more of this air pipe and actually come back in here 3 weeks later to redo the dive. On the second attempt, they walked out into chamber 4, 5, and 6, and 7 on the second attempt. When they got into chamber 7, they could see the water was rippling above them. If the water's rippling, that means there is air and a void up there. So what they did, they came back into here, got an empty oil drum, flooded it with water, walked all the way back into chamber 7, but they took an extra air pipe. Once they got there, they plugged it in the oil drum, someone pumped air to it, which pushed all the water out of the oil drum, which made the oil drum go buoyant. Tied a rope to it, floated it up to the surface, and they could actually climb up the rope to have a look above the water levels. You guys will see chamber 7 on the tour where they got to, but it is completely different to this. There's no land for them to get out. It is a vertical cave. So they were quite disappointed. But, you know, fair play to them. They got that far. They weren't divers or anything. They just wanted to give it a go. The current record for the furthest people can go, we're in chamber 3. Cave divers, most weekends, can get as far as chamber 25. It's about 3.5 hours that way. It's not an easy dive. The roof does come down to meet the floor. They have to dig through the silt, push the air cylinders through and carry on diving. But by the time they got to come back, the silt was resettled, so they have to dig their way back out. Also, that dive used to hold the deepest cave dive record in Great Britain at 90 metres. That's been blown out of the water, excuse the pun. But when it first all started off, it was minus 90 metres below sea level. But if you dive down to that far, it's not too bad going down because you get used to the pressure. It's on the way back, they have to do a 7-hour decompression just to get to the top of that chamber and then do 3.5 hours back to here. So it's a bit of a commitment. They only kind of do it once just to say, you know, they've been to the end. Most often go off to chamber 24, which is only like 2 hours. It's not too bad to get there. Well, I say that it's still bad, but not like that. But chamber 24 isn't as big as the whole cave you are seeing into one chamber. And the water isn't at base level, so it's not nice and calm like this. They've got waterfalls, whitewater rapids, and canyon passages. So for divers, it's fun, because they like it that way. So the original owners of the caves were Madame Two Swords. And it was them who blasted the new tunnels back in the 70s, and that is the way we are going to go, so we took the cave. So again, just mind your heads as you get to the As we're a small group, we'll have a sniff.
Oh, that's it. That's that cave. Remember that cave matured cheddar?
Did we buy any of the cave? We didn't.
You can already...
We tried it.
You can get it on the way out in our gift shop, ironically.
We did go to cheddar, yes.
Oh, did you? Yeah, they've got cheese in their caves as well. Yeah.
Is it similar to this going in? Because I went years ago.
Yes and no.
And I thought it
Their caves isn't as big
Call
as
that
our cave
cheese.
system.
Yeah.
They've been to the public. But they have different types of formations.
Yes.
So it is really hard. I like this morning someone said, which cave is better? And I'm like, it depends what you want to see and do. Yeah, good. I always say to people, go to both, because we're all slightly different.
Yeah, we are. We're going tomorrow.
So that's a different type of thing in a cave. So this is world famous Wookey Hole cheddar cheese. Cheddar is the process the cheese is made. It doesn't have to be made in the town of cheddar. In the case of a cave, it actually absorbs the moisture from the rock into the cheese. So it keeps the cheese moist. So they know in a year's time they take the cheese out and there's 27 kilos of cheese still. But it also does take the flavour of the cave into the cheese. I sound crazy when I say that, but if you try it, you'll totally understand what I mean. It kind of tastes like earthy, nutty, a bit creamy. It's a really, really good cheese. It doesn't taste like it, honestly, it tastes really nice. But don't let the smell that you want. Oh, yeah, this is yours.
Duck here. You can't see that, guys, but it goes right down. Oh, look at it. That plant has got to be growing from the light off that lamp only. Got to it. Else, there is no other light down here. Life will find a way. It's like that piece of rocks fell off, got wedged. You know what I mean?
Did this in 2015.
Well, blasted the way out.
This tunnel. Otherwise, we'd have been going out.
Oh, we would have been going
But
out that way.
this has been done in 2015.
No? Oh, look at that.
Has the largest chamber in Great Britain in their cave. Is that Proxys? No, it's not. It's called Frozen Deep. It's a part of the cave that isn't open to the public, so people cavers. But it's probably 3 times the size of this cave that you are seeing today. Far away for cheddar to open up to the public. It's like too deep in the cave. It would be a long old walk to get there, so they haven't opened it up. So welcome to Chamber 20, or as I like to call it, Wookey 20. Can you feel it's a little bit cooler in here than the rest of the cave? That's because the chamber we are standing in, actually we're standing in 10% of what is here. Up where that light is, up on the right hand side, the cave goes on for about 800 metres that way. And up over the left hand side, there is another passage that goes on for about 1 kilometre. So that is why it is cooler in here, because there is such a bigger void and there's a lot more airflow. But the owners put that tunnel in 2015 to open up this chamber to you guys, so you can see this beautiful rock formation in front of you. This is called Cavern. We are one of only 3 show caves in the world to have this open to the public. There's one in China and there is one in South America. It is very, very common above ground, but underground in caves it's quite a rare thing to find. And it is also brilliant because there's no wind, there's no rain down here. However, this is formed and it is stayed how it is. It doesn't weather. So it is formed during the ice ages. In England, we didn't have glaciers, we had permafrost. So the ground used to freeze, we didn't have sheer blocks of ice. So as the ice age finishes, the permafrost would melt and it would create huge lakes on the Mendip Hills. And then over time, as the water eroded through the ground, the easiest way, imagine pulling a plug in a full sink of water, that whole lake used to empty into here. So it used to come cascading down from the very, very top edge. You can still see the grooves up there now. And as it picked up the clay sediment, it would run down, picking up speed as well, and over time it is literally carved in these incredible etched, fluting, it's incredible. Geologists are confused why it is here also. For this to form, you need 3 things. You need slightly acidic water, like it was half. It's that ever so slightly acidic water. The limestone, which this is, has to be a certain density. And it also has to be, the slab of limestone has to be at the right angle, because if not the water runs down too quick or too slow. So geologists are confused in here why it is here and nowhere else in the cave. It's just, it's magical that all 3 things happened at once and you have this. And then again, talking about it, we have had a seismic activity and movement, which has made this big crack going all the way across the Cavern. And that is also what people think has made this boulder fall and land in this very precarious position. We have stood on top of it, it is safe to stand on, so it's not going to go anywhere. But the rock at the top actually fits in the roof where my torch is quite nicely into that bit. So that's where they think it has fell out from, rolled down, cracked open and ended up in this position. So before 2015, the only way to get in here was being a cave diver, so not many people have been in here. They didn't surface from the body of water behind you here. This does link into the main river, but we put our divers in to have a look, and there isn't a big enough gap for them to get through. There's kind of a little crack. So it does link into the main river, but they surfaced from chamber 19, which is just up behind these boulders. The water levels are at the same height. So the divers in the 70s came into chamber 19, got out of the water, came over these boulders into where we are standing today. And we have found their original pictures from the 70s, and the boulders are exactly like this. So different tour guide.
Yeah.
And they're saying it's lovely to have a different person every time, because we all know slightly different information. Like we spend a lot of time in the pub talking and doing research on different bits and bobs. So once a month we all meet up, go have a drink and have a chat and see who's found what new information about the cave.
Right.
So we all kind of get updated, but we all know slightly different stuff. because we all have slightly different interests.
Yeah.
Like one of our guides, Neil, is actually a geologist.
Oh, is it?
So his tours focus heavily on the rock formation,
Yeah.
which is cool. We've got one guy who's a cave diver, so for him he goes really in depth about cave diving. Yeah, so
Well, I really enjoyed your tour.
thank you.
You know that tunnel that the new one?
Yeah,
How long did it take?
that was
you?
4 weeks.
4 weeks.
Of grueling blood, sweat and tears from the whole of the Wookey Hole team. Because coming down here we had conveyor belts to take everything out that we blasted out. But once it gets out here, we had to carry it by hand to the van to take it away. So we were open to the public during the day, and then as soon as the last group came out of the caves, they started blasting. Yeah. So I think that's why 20 is my favourite, because it's literally blood, sweat and tears have gone into it.
Yeah.
Well, you've,
So it
you've
makes
been a
it
part of
personal.
it.
Yeah, I was here when they were doing it.
Yeah.
It's the most surreal sound hearing an explosion in a cave.
Really,
Because it's so loud, it's
And does it
silent. It does, and because it's got nowhere to go into the rock, it comes all the way out through the tunnels. But the noise is so loud, it's really hard to. It's so loud, it's quiet.
Weren't you worried about the ceilings going through there?
That's what the net was
That
for.
was the net.
But the rest of it is fine. But the sound wave actually hits you like a wall. It literally just goes through you. It's the weirdest
Oh, it's
sensation.
nice and warm out here.
Rosa. See ya. He sounds like he's got a cold. And the witches thing, eh? need to come and see this. The camera doesn't do it justice. Look at that up there. Oh, ain't amazing. Oh, that's off. Could be another planet. Anyway, onward. That is calcite, not water. Amazing. Anyway.
Flints, fresh and sharp, spears poised and positioned, blood spills in sudden death and shared victory.
Wookey or cheddar?
The wild spirit blows fiercely. The breeze that breaks from cover.
one to do, out of Wookey and cheddar, I'd take Wookey up.
A bright sun rises above the trees. They are there. The hunters move. They form a line across the hilltop.
Very disappointing. At the very end of the show, the videos don't work. And that's what I mean. Wookey is better.